Regina looks at the burn book as if it were a sleeping animal that could wake up at any moment. She holds it in her hands with a strange, almost ritualistic care, as if she knows that what she's about to do won't just change the dynamics of a school, but the course of her own life. There is no heroic light on her, no music announcing a triumphant moment. There is only that thick silence, that air that tightens when someone is about to cross a line from which there is no return. She opens the book and flips through it slowly, as if examining piece by piece the machinery of her reign. There are the words that wounded, the photos that humiliated, the phrases that destroyed entire reputations. Words written by her own pen, sometimes in anger, sometimes in amusement, sometimes simply out of habit. And yet, as she scans those pages, something sparks inside her. Not guilt, not remorse, but a decision. Cold, clear, final. Then she tears out a picture. Hers. She pastes it with surgical deliberation onto a page that didn't belong to her. She turns herself into a victim with the same talent she once used to turn insecure girls into loyal subjects. And when she closes the book, she doesn't do it gently. She closes it with the same firmness with which destinies are sealed. Minutes later, the sound of a photocopier fills the air. It is rhythmic, mechanical, impersonal. A machine multiplying black and white poison. Regina gathers the freshly printed pages, holding them like someone carrying explosive cargo. Then she walks through the empty halls, dropping a handful here, another there, sliding some under doors, tossing them down the stairs. Every page she leaves behind is a spark. Every spark, an emotional explosion waiting to be triggered. And then it happens. The next morning, the entire school wakes up transformed into a battlefield. Screams in the hallways, slamming doors, insults flying like knives, friends betraying each other, secrets shooting out like projectiles. Regina walks through the chaos as if she were invincible, as if she weren't the one who had lit the fire, or perhaps as if the fire had always been there, and she had simply lifted the lid. Pause for a moment. Breathe. Look around. What you're seeing isn't just a school scandal. It's the X-ray of something we've all lived. That moment when an uncomfortable truth, an old lie, or a buried insecurity comes to light and turns everything into emotional wreckage. Regina didn't create the humanity of those girls. She exposed it. And maybe that's why her power was always so potent, because she used the truth everyone wanted to hide. But to understand how she got here, we need to go back, far back, to the beginning, before the scandals, before the rules, before the shine that made her untouchable. Regina doesn't just appear one day as a queen. She becomes one. Her rise begins the way most social crowns do, with beauty, with charisma, with an innate sense of how she wants to be seen. She learns early that a calculated smile can open doors, and that a word spoken at the exact right moment can close them. Behind every gesture lies invisible training. Constant observation, precise reading of the room, the ability to detect others' insecurities as if they were cracks in a wall. Her group, the Plastics, isn't born from pure friendship. It is born as a system. Regina doesn't seek companions, she seeks extensions of her own rule. Gretchen, eager to please. Karen, naive and easy to maneuver. Both pieces necessary to keep her throne balanced. And Regina knows it. She dresses them, guides them, corrects them, molds them. Her power isn't that of a screaming tyrant, it's that of a silent strategist. This is where we need to stop again, because it's impossible not to recognize something painful. At some point, all of us have been close to toxic leadership, sometimes as victims, sometimes as silent participants. And yes, sometimes as small Reginas who used someone else's insecurity to feel less alone. Regina's story isn't just entertainment, it's a mirror. As her reign grows, so does her need for control. She wins Aaron Samuels back with the elegance of an experienced manipulator. She fakes vulnerability when it suits her. She delivers poisoned compliments that make you smile while they break you. Her power doesn't come from force. It comes from expertise. She knows exactly what to say to leave someone trembling without anyone being able to blame her. What she touches, she defines. What she defines, she dominates. And then Katie Heron arrives, the new girl, the innocent one, the girl who doesn't yet know that in that school, hierarchies are more sacred than any subject. Regina takes her in, wraps her up, introduces her to her world, and then when she sees her growing too much, when she detects even a shadow of competition, she crushes her with a single move. She gets Aaron back, just to prove she can. It's a silent war, and Regina wins wars before they even start. But here comes the reflection that hurts. Absolute power always has an expiration date, and Regina, even if she denies it, knows it. That's why she clings so tightly. That's why she reacts with such fury when Katie begins to become her. Because what Regina fears most isn't losing a boyfriend or a group or a reputation. What she fears most is being replaced, being forgotten, becoming invisible. That word, invisible, is her real enemy. And that's why she does what she does with the burn book. That's why she decides to burn everything down before letting anyone dim her light. But the irony is perfect. In trying to save her crown, Regina opens the crack through which she will begin to fall apart. Katie Heron analysis coming soon. How glamour and false appearances lead us to destroy everything we are. Leave your like. If we reach 2,000 likes, we'll make it as soon as possible. Regina George had always lived under a silent law. What I give, I control. What I reveal, I decide. But the greatest power is not always held by the person with the most followers, but the one who controls the narrative. That's why when chaos erupted and the burn book came to light, something strange happened. Regina, for the first time, no longer controlled the story. And when that happens, even an invincible kingdom begins to shake. Because every life built on appearances has a breaking point, and hers arrived wrapped in pink paper, the smell of ink, and hallway screams. In her final moments as an undisputed queen, Regina found herself transformed into the perfect villain. Not because she was innocent, she had written much of that book herself, but because she never expected to become the spark that would set the entire school on fire. It's ironic. The one who always controlled the flames ended up consumed by them. And as she watched the hallways turn into a sort of teenage civil war, she may have understood something she had never allowed herself to see before. That her power relied too heavily on the fear she inspired. That her reign had been built on fragile threads, held together by superficial admiration and fear, disguised as respect. And this is the moment where it's worth slowing down. Because all of us, at some point, have played with the temptation of control. We like deciding how people see us, which version we show, how much of ourselves we allow to be known. But turning that need into an identity is the fastest way to lose yourself completely. Regina didn't realize it, but every cruel comment, every manipulation, every lie delivered with a perfect smile was just another brick in the wall that separated her from who she really was. When the hallways burned, when accusations exploded, when everything that once held her up began to fall, Regina did something unexpected. She didn't defend herself. She didn't look for explanations. She didn't apologize. She simply let the avalanche swallow her. And maybe that says something profound too. Sometimes we grow so accustomed to our masks that we prefer the world to tear them off rather than removing them ourselves. But the real fall, the one everyone remembers, came later. Outside, in the rain, running toward the final battle she had left, Regina suddenly lost the only armor she had never questioned, her invincibility. Because even perfect queens can be knocked down by something as mundane as a bus appearing out of nowhere. And although the movie presents it as an unexpectedly comedic moment, emotionally, it's a brutal symbol. Life always finds a way to stop us when we refuse to stop ourselves. And there, in the silence afterward, in the hospital, with casts, bandages, and a future she couldn't control for the first time, Regina George stopped being the villain. She stopped even being the queen. She became simply human. And sometimes, for some of us, that is the first step toward freedom. What's most striking about that period isn't her pain, it's her change. Not a revelatory transformation, not a moral awakening, but something much simpler, and for that reason, more real. The fall gave her a pause, a space where she no longer had to perform, where the invisible cameras of her life shut off, where no one expected her to be perfect. And sometimes, only then can we begin to see who we are without the noise. When she returned to school, no one knew what to expect, but neither did she. And perhaps that made her more human than any dramatic act could. Regina came back, yes, but she came back different. She was no longer a myth, no longer a social ghost everyone feared. She was someone wounded, fractured, more aware. She joined sports, channeled her strength into something real, not symbolic. She began moving through a world where she no longer needed to dominate, only exist. And in that existence without a crown, without a court, without a plastic empire, she found a different kind of peace. Because the hidden lesson behind Regina George isn't that being mean has consequences. We already know that. Her real lesson is more uncomfortable. Many of us have been a small part of Regina without realizing it. When we manipulate to be accepted, when we criticize to avoid feeling lesser, when we fake confidence to hide fear, when we build identities based on what others expect instead of who we truly are, when we believe power lies in controlling others, not in understanding ourselves. Regina's story is a soft but firm warning. If you don't heal your insecurities, you will end up hurting others while convincing yourself the world is to blame. And if you ever lose everything, as she did, you might discover that deep down, you didn't lose anything. You finally let go of what was never yours. That's why her story still resonates. Not because she reminds us of the perfect villain, but because in her fragility, we see our own. Because all of us, at some point, have wanted to be seen, loved, feared, or admired. All of us have wanted to belong. And all of us have made the mistake of looking for that in the wrong places. Regina George isn't a warning about adolescent cruelty. She's a mirror. And like all mirrors, sometimes it hurts to look at it. In the end, she didn't become a moral example. She didn't become a saint. She didn't deliver a public apology or change completely. But she stopped being a shadow that fed on other people's light. She found a different way to exist. And although the movie doesn't glorify or punish her life, her evolution is more honest than any perfect ending. Regina learns to live without masks, without toxic power, without an empire to defend. And that, even if it doesn't shine, even if it doesn't impress, even if it isn't spectacular, is profoundly human. And now, at this point, when her biography has already stripped away so many of our own contradictions, it's worth asking ourselves, what part of Regina are we feeding without realizing it? The part that protects itself by attacking? The one that decorates itself with perfection to hide wounds? The one that confuses attention with affection? The path to not becoming her isn't condemning her. It's listening to ourselves, identifying the moment where our shine begins to depend on dimming others, and correcting it before life or a symbolic bus forces us to stop. And if this story moved you, made you think, or simply kept you company for a moment, I invite you to something simple but powerful. Subscribe, because here we keep exploring the wounds, the masks, and the emotional corners behind the characters who shaped our lives. Also, leave your like, not out of obligation, but so I know this kind of analysis truly connects with you. And tell me in the comments, what part of Regina did you see in yourself? And what part are you ready to let go of? I'll be reading you there.